Hello and welcome. One of the world's biggest democracies is going to the polls and facing some interesting challenges. Indonesia, the largest Muslim nation, could find itself voting in some of controversial figures from the past. It's only the second time Indonesians have been able to vote directly for a president since their country's transition to democracy following the fall of the dictator Suharto in 1998. The economy and corruption are leading concerns for the average voter, but many observers, both domestic and international, believe human rights abuses are also a major issue. Echoes of Indonesia's military past are reverberating through this election, with ex-generals lined up among the major contenders, including two who were heavily involved in the destruction of neighbouring East Timor. The current government of Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono, or SBY as he's known, has strengthened the economy, taken important steps in tackling corruption, and presided over the end of a decades-long civil war in Aceh province. His main rivals include his own current vice president and also the daughter of Indonesia's first dictator, Sukarno. On today's show, we examine what's at stake and ask, are Indonesians looking to continue SBY's economic policies, or will nationalistic fervor elect one of the other two candidates? Remember, you can join our conversation with your questions and comments. Log on to livestation.com/AJE, enter the chat room and you can take part. And we'll also welcome your phone calls onto the show as well. Joining me from Jakarta is Bambang Harimurti, is the editor-in-chief of Tempo, a weekly news magazine and daily paper. He was educated at Harvard and has received many prestigious awards. In 2006, Mr. Harimurti was sentenced to prison on defamation charges, which were later overturned by Indonesia's Supreme Court. Here with me in Washington, D.C. is Indonesia's ambassador to the U.S., Sujatnan Parnohadiningrat, who's got 2 decades of foreign service with the Indonesian government, including a posting as ambassador to Australia and Vanuatu. And in a few moments, we'll also be joined from Dili by President Jose Ramos-Horta of East Timor. Gentlemen, I welcome you to the show, and Ambassador, good to have you here with us. And I want to start with you and ask you, from your perspective, yes, what is at stake in these elections? What is it the Indonesian people stand to either gain or lose?
Well, of course, as you yourself mentioned in the early of your observation, that questions of economic recovery and corruptions and all those involve the interests of the popular in Indonesia became the topics for debate and campaign of the three candidates. So I think we are really entering a phase where the three candidates will be testified, will be seen by the Indonesian populations whether he can really gain the support as many as possible Indonesian voters.
Now, what chance is there, Ambassador, of these elections being tarnished because of the confusion over the electoral list? There are still people, who are failing to register or wanting to register, and I think it involves actually very large numbers, millions of people even.
Yes, but that's already been dealt with by the election commissions, and way has already been found, so that to the satisfactions of the most of the population.
Bambang Harimurti in Jakarta, good to have you with us at this very early hour as we go live. I appreciate you taking the time. I want to ask you what the general mood of the Indonesian people is right now as it goes into the election period.
Well, I think they are very ready to go to the to vote, because they have been having a lot of long time of campaign time, so they think they want to get ready to vote and have all this over with.
What sense do you get of the strongest issues? What do you think really is riding high in the voters' minds, what they would like to see fixed by whoever takes the seat next?
Well, in any election, it's always a contest between continuity and change. But in Indonesia, because a lot of people are still quite optimistic about their country, I think the force of continuity will easily win over the force of change here in Indonesia, unlike in the US.
What I'm going to do is get back to questions for yourself and the ambassador in just a moment. Let me get onto the phone now to Dili in East Timor, and the president of East Timor, Dr. Jose Ramos-Horta, is on the line with us. He was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1996 for decades of work to free East Timor from Indonesia's occupation. President Ramos-Horta, good to have you with us. And sir, I guess first thing from many people's perspective is, how do you regard the fact that there are 3 ex-generals on the lineup here for the election? 2 of them in particular, the running for the opposition vice president positions, are former generals Prabowo Subianto and General Wiranto, both of whom were very, very strongly connected with what was considered a very difficult campaign in East Timor. How do you regard their being on the ticket?
Well, I'm puzzled. How former President Megawati, he would pick as running mate General Prabowo. Puzzle how former Vice President Yusuf Kala would have picked Wiranto as running mate. But this is their choice, and if the Indonesian people vote for one of the two, whoever they are or whatever their background, we will obviously them. Of course, here in Timor-Leste, not only myself, the vast majority of the people want to move on, continue the exemplary relationship with Indonesia over the past 10 years. President Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono, definitely for the East Timor represent the present and the future. And if East Timorese people were able to vote, I would say they would vote overwhelmingly in choosing Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono. He has been exemplary, he has been outstanding in his relationship with us.
So, quick thought then, Mr. President, if SBY, the current president, doesn't get a second term, how are the people of East Timor going to deal with having to deal with former generals who've basically got such a harsh track record with them? How could the East Timorese people deal with them?
Well, East Timorese, by and large, even though many have deep wounds from the past, are also extraordinarily resilient and pragmatic. They know that we have to live with Indonesia, whoever is elected president and vice president in Indonesia. So I do not think that from Vice President Prabowo, Vice President Wiranto, if any of them is elected as part of the ticket, would really disturb the East Timorese people. We as leaders, I myself, would offer congratulations and would pledge to work with them for the betterment of the relationship between the two countries, regardless of their past in connection with East Timor. So we have absolutely no doubt about that. We are not going to bring up the issues of the past in the relationship with Indonesia.
All right. Well, Mr. President, thank you very much for joining us again. A very early hour there as we go live, and thank you for your time in the night there in Dili.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Thank you, sir. Ambassador, if I could get back to you, sir, and ask you this issue of the generals on the ticket,
yes.
From your perspective in Indonesia itself, looking at the current government situation as well. How do you regard the controversy surrounding them?
Well, this is a matter of implementing the principle of democracy. The candidate already been supported by quite a large number of people, and if you mention about the two former general or three even former general, then it is very much depend on how the people perceive that those three or those two going to be their leader, and the fact that they already been granted a ticket to become a candidate for vice president. And as I said, this we are not talking about implementations of the principle of promotion and protection of human rights, but we are talking about implementations of the principle of democracy that is now taking place.
All right. Well, Bambang Harimurti in Jakarta there, how do you expect the first round of voting to go? Do you think things will be very clear, or do you expect a runoff, and what implications might that have for the vote?
Well, if judging by the last poll taken last week by a reputable institution, I think the Yudhoyono will win easily, probably in the first round, and by first round only because he probably will win more than 50% at more than half of the provinces that we have in Indonesia. So my best bet is he will win by first round.
Bambang, we had a question that came by Facebook, if I can put this to you, and this is from Balachandran Nair in Malaysia. And Balachandran wrote in saying, corruption has hampered and eaten up most of the allocations and assistance meant for the poor and downtrodden, especially in remote locations. But my sincere opinion is that the current president, Yudhoyono, is doing a great job. Now, it seems Indonesian voters are concerned, obviously, with the state of the economy and reforms against corruption. How do you rate what's happened with the current government in tackling these issues?
Well, I think the government is getting a lot of support from the people, actually because of the work of anti-corruption agency. As you know, that the president himself has the father-in-law of his son is in jail now for corruption charges, and he was given credit for not interfering with this case. So I think President Yudhoyono has the best credible chance to win, because people believe him the most in performing for a clean government.
Okay, well, I have more questions for you, Andy. Ambassador, in just a moment. We're going to take a short break here. As we pause, let me remind you, you can join the conversation with your questions and comments by logging on to livestation.com and entering the chat room. You can see the debates taking place there right now. We'll be right back.